Now this is a video that can cop me a lot of hate. I know it. I know already what's coming, so I'm ready for it. Hit me with the best you got. But as the title of the video says, it's my top 5 favourite players of all time. Not the best 5 players of all time in my opinion. It's my favourite top 5 players. So not necessarily the best, although I think they're all pretty good. But it's my top 5 favourites. So whatever you guys think, let me know. I would like to know who your favourites are. But these top 5 are mine, so I'll get straight into it. I've got some honourable mentions, and some of these guys, it pains me not to have them in my top 5, but it shows the calibre of the list. So I've got Trent Cotchin. Now I know that name is going to get a lot of hate for not being in my top 5, but I've got Cotchin, I've got Nathan Brown, I've got Shane Edwards, and I've got Ivan Maric. Now Ivan Maric, we all know why he's in that list. He was that cult figure. He was just a presence around the ground. I think it was the mullet. He didn't play very long with Richmond, but it was everything about him. I just loved him when he was on the ground. So that's why he's in there. And the other boys speak for themselves. But we'll get into the list. Excuse my dog barking out the back. But at number 5, I've got Alex Rance, the most handsome man in football. Rancey, the golden fist. I swear, he came from absolutely nowhere. At one stage, you wouldn't have known who Alex Rance was. He was sort of mediocre on the list. He was sort of floating around, and then all of a sudden he makes 5 All-Australians in a row. Captain's one of them. Arguably should have played in that 2019 grand final, and he was just one. I think he's one of the greatest defenders this game has ever seen, and it could be a biased opinion, or I think a lot of people share it. He was just unbelievable. He knew when to leave his man and attack the footy, and 9 times out of 10 he would make that decision correctly. He was amazing matchup for Buddy Franklin, and we loved watching the battle between them over the years. There was a bit of animosity there, but it was a wonderful battle. It took us back to those old school days where you get the big key forwards and the big full backs, and they'd be going at each other, and there's a bit of that with Rancey and Buddy, and I loved that. So Rance for me was number 5. He was one of those players, every time he was out there and he did something, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh wow. So Alex Rance is my number 5. On the opposite end of the ground, and at my number 4, I have Jack Riewoldt. Now, a few of these names are going to speak for themselves, but Jack Riewoldt, he came into Richmond and not a great time. He was that young, skinny forward, living in his cousin's shadow a little bit. Nick Riewoldt was already a superstar of the game, and Jack, he kind of didn't know where he was going to be, and I never forget the first time I remember seeing him play, and it was Richmond versus St Kilda, and he had a shot after the siren to win the game. He was about 55, 60 metres out. And he missed. He was a young kid. He was skinny. He was probably 18, 19, whatever it was, and sprayed the kick. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, it's funny to judge him on that. But at the time, I was like, oh, who knows what this kid's going to become. And I say that, but I was probably like 8 or 9 at the time. I was pretty young myself. But then you watch him now and what he's become and the things that he's done for this club. 3-time premiership player, multiple Colemans. He's the pillar of our forward line. I know we've got Lynchy down there now, but I always feel that a little bit more confident when it's got the footies in Jack's hands. So he's still flying. For an old boy, he's still flying. Hopefully this isn't the last year we see him. I feel like it will be. But regardless, it's been an amazing career. Privileged to have watched it. So that's my number 4. At number 3, and this guy here has been my number 2 my entire life, or my life that I can remember anyway quite vividly. He was always my number 2 man. But he's been pushed out by the number 2 that I'll read out later. But number 3 is Brett Delidio, and Lids was probably my favourite player for a very long period of time. I loved watching him. He was amazing. I remember meeting him one time, and he came down to my footy club. I would have been under 10s, 11s or something like that, and I just remember being over the moon. I couldn't believe it. I thought, Brett Delidio was here. He was one of the quickest players. I remember he won the grand final sprint. He was a rising star. It was unbelievable. And he could play all over the ground. He had a stint on the half back line. He played half forward. He played midfield predominantly, as we know. And he was just a superstar. I loved Brett Delidio. The number 3, it felt weird seeing Prestia put it on for the first time. I thought it was always number 3 was Lids. And when we traded him, I remember I was on the verge of tears. I was swelling up a little bit. I couldn't believe that we'd let this heart and soul of the club go. And I understood his reasonings behind it, but I couldn't believe it. But it pains me to say that I don't think we see the success that we do if Delidio had stayed, just because of the trades and the movements that happened in that 2016 off-season. But it still pains me to watch him leave and play for another club. It's just the whole story behind Brett Delidio was a little bit heartbreaking when you see that Richmond then won the flag the year after he left, the club that he gave so much to, and you could see that he'd really done it. I think the fact that he got the blessing to leave from Dimmer and some other players around him and all that makes me feel a little bit more okay with everything when he left and all that. I know some people are dirty on him, and I get it. It's tough, but he's towards the end of his career. He wanted a bit of success. We by no means had any right to win the flag in 17 the way we finished off 2016. So I don't blame him, but either way, he falls at my number 3, Brett Delidio. Number 2, the man who pushed Delidio out, and it's a tough one for me because he could have even jumped to number 1, this guy, but he's still floating at number 2 at the moment, and it's the man you may potentially be able to see in the background down there, Dustin Martin, our number 4, 3-time Norm Smith medalist, Brownlow medalist, 3-time premiership player, absolute freak, arguably the greatest player of all time, depending who you ask. There's so many things I can say about Dusty and why he'd be my number 2 favourite, and he keeps climbing up the list every year, and maybe I don't want to choose him sometimes because it's too obvious, but he makes it too hard for you not to choose him. He's so exciting when he kicks goals, the crowd goes bananas. He's there whenever you need a lift. He's everything. He's everything about this club. He turned down a lot of money to stay at Richmond, which I think is another honourable thing. He could have gone anywhere and made massive amounts of coin wherever he went, but he stayed at the Tigers. He fought through. He looks like he's having a great off-season after the last couple of years, which have been shaky for him, but I'm feeling we're going to get a pretty good Dustin Martin in 2023, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that, but he's my number 2 favourite player, and I mean, there's no secret as to why. I don't have to dwell on why Dustin Martin falls at number 2, and it's time for number 1, the big one. I'll dive into it, and for those that know me personally, before I even started this list, you knew who my number 1 was going to be, and it's going to come as no surprise, but my number 1 favourite player from the Tigers of all time, and actually not even just the Tigers, AFL and all sport in general of all time, without a shadow of a doubt, the great number 12, Matthew Richardson. Now, excuse me if it looks like I've shuffled a little bit. I hit the microphone when saying his name the first time round and jumbled things up. Had to restart. The camera's probably moved a little bit, but forget about that. Number 12, Richo is my favourite player of all time, and it's no secret as to why. I mean, you look at the same reasons Dustin Martin's at number 2. Richo is very similar for me. He was the Richmond Football Club. I didn't understand Richmond Football Club without Matthew Richardson. I was born in 96, and he debuted in 93. So I grew up, and he was always there. He was always around, and as a lot of you know, we've been a pretty average team for a large period of my life. We were a pretty average team, and he was the only sort of shining light that would come every week. And the reason I would go to the football every weekend was to watch Richo play footy, run around, kick the pill, kick goals. And when he went on the wing, he was incredible. Nearly won a Brownlow. Should have won a Brownlow, arguably, and it was an amazing player. I mean, so many memories from my childhood stem around Richo. I mean, there was a mark, and I'll try to find the footage and put it on camera one day and show everybody, but there's a mark Richo took, and a lot of you will know it. It was a massive hanger on Heath Shaw. And there's an angle you see in one of the Richmond DVDs that I've got. You see Richo go off of the mark, and it's in slow motion, pans through the crowd, and you see a very young me in the crowd behind watching him, just starry-eyed, couldn't believe what I was watching. And I think that look on my face right then sums the way that I felt about Richo. The way I still feel about Richo, it's bizarre. I'm 26 years old and I still act like I'm in love with the man. And maybe I am. I can't fault me for that. But he was, unbelievable. I remember if I couldn't get to a game, which as a kid, you can't do as many things as you want, as you have the freedoms to do as you get older. But as a kid, if I couldn't watch the game, I'd be listening to it on the radio because I never had Foxtel. I was always a free-to-air man. So as a kid, I'd have to listen to the radio if it was an interstate game or something like that. And hearing Rex Hunt sing the Richo Man song, and it'll probably play over the top of me now, was it was the best. It made me so excited. It made me the happiest little kid. My first jumper had number 12 on it, and it's just, so many memories for Matty Richardson. So there you go. There is my top 5. I'll round it out. I had 5 Alex Rance, 4 Jack Rewalt, 3 Brett Delidio, 2 Dustin Martin, and number 1, my main man, Matty Richo. There's my list. Let me know what you guys think. As I said at the beginning, I know I'm probably going to cop a lot of hate for this, but regardless of that, it's just my personal top 5. So think what you want to think. That's all good. It's what all this is about. We're trying to grow a community here, and I really want to do that with you guys. So let me know in the comments. Send me messages on Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is. Let me know what you guys think about my top 5 and who would be in yours. different generations are going to have different players. If you're a little bit older, you know, you might have someone like a Wayne Campbell, our old skipper from back in the day. I mean, I know I saw bits and pieces, but not enough of him really. If you're even further back, KB, Royce Hart, Francis Burke, these type of guys might be in your top 5 of all time. So this probably speaks for the age group that I'm at, as well as some of my honourable mentions like Nathan Brown, sort of mid-2000s and all that. So let me know what you guys think, who you guys would have in there. If you're a bit younger than me, it'll probably be all current day players, which is completely fair enough because we've got a lot of stars in the team and I don't blame you for picking any of them. So let me know what you guys think. That is it. If you cannot tell, I am wearing the Pressure Point branded hat. So I'll have the link for that in the bio. We've also got tees. We've got tank tops now. We got tote bags, stubby holders, bucket hats. A fair few things. Have a look. Check it out. It's a massive, massive, massive support to me and Marcus as well, who I do the Pressure Point podcast with. We're trying to grow a big brand here, big community. Tiger Den is going to be a part of that community, and I can't wait to see it expand and grow with you guys. So if you want to help support the channel, please do go buy some Pressure Point merch because it does support Tiger Den as well. If not, I really appreciate you being here regardless, watching my videos. If you can, I'd much appreciate a subscribe, a like, a share, a comment. Get that algorithm going because it's the only way this channel is going to grow and the community is going to grow, and that's what it's all about. I really want this Richmond community where it's sort of by the fans, for the fans, stealing a bit of a catchphrase there from a good friend of mine, Terry, but it's what it is. So let me know what you guys think. Please do all the above. Follow, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. Until the next video though, go Tigers.